Hi everyone, my name is Effie. I'm the Mountain States Territory Manager with Xybix, and I'm with
Yvonne Fox, the 911 Director with the Public Safety Emergency Communication Center of Sandoval County, PSEC.
Yes, and today we're going to talk a little bit about their amazing center, how everything came together, and a little bit of the process that we went through in order to get this completed. So, kind of wanted to ask you a little bit is for you, if you can kind of expound a little bit about how this process was for you. Yeah, with the time that you were given, but how did all these pieces come together? And I guess a little background on building the ECC.
So we got word that we were going to have to build the ECC it was 2023, September of 2023, I believe. And so the process to get this started was a very, very, very short timeline. Usually centers need, 2.5 to 3 years to start. We were building a communication center from the ground up. So it was going to be a very tight timeline. Like I said before, we had another vendor. We did have a consulting agency, and they were kind of working all that out for us. And as we were starting to get closer, they kind of sort of ghosted us a little bit. So even though they had the contract, we just weren't getting any information as when are they going to start, when are they going to come in. And also with that, we were doing construction on this building. So the construction hadn't even been completed yet. I came in, I was hired in January of 2025. So the ball had already started, but it became pretty apparent that they were not going to be able to meet our timeline to get everything in and done by June, even the middle of June. So when they had suggested reaching out to Xybix, I was completely on board just because we've, in my previous center that I worked at, we did have these consoles and I knew how to work them. I knew what it meant. I knew all the things. So I was ready for it. I really did want that. So it was great. And I believe you guys came in February or March, and then it was just, we were running.
Yeah.
But even though we were running, it was the most, out of pretty much all the vendors, it was the most seamless and most communicative and most accommodating. I didn't have to, if I asked a question, it was answered immediately. If I made a change, it was answered immediately. The design process was wonderful. We had samples right away. And every time you said you were going to do something, it actually got done. There wasn't this where I had to do any follow-up, which was amazing, especially in this endeavor of dealing with, 15 to 20 contractors and then doing the puzzle pieces of the construction build and then getting you in here at the same time with the electricians. It was worse than building a house. It was worse than building a house. But it was just seamless and wonderful. And even when we had a few hiccups, you guys were very accommodating in that and it responded very quickly. And the customer service was amazing. So
I love hearing that because from the time that we came in, which is around early March, late February, it was like, hey, we want to go live by the beginning of June. And I said, we can do it.
Yeah.
I was like, if there's I was like, yeah, we're going to have to really be on the ball. We'll work out the layout. We'll work out the details and everything like that. Come on site. We'll get with the GCs, the electricians, because that was another, obviously key element. But to have that amount of confidence and then to see it come to fruition too within that time frame.
It was amazing.
Yeah, there were, changes here and changes there, but I didn't think it was like anything that we couldn't tackle together. And I think that was one of the cool things about this project is that everyone was like, we know we have to be on the ball. We know we have to get it done. And it was really cool to see that like big collaborative effort.
It was very stressful. That was the one thing that I appreciated the most with Xybix is that you all understood the pressure that we were under in terms of getting us started July 1st. So even though we were, you came in and then the electricians didn't have certain things done, you were like, your company was like, okay, well, we'll do this part of the project because you understood the timeline. So because you were able to accommodate those certain needs, we were able to get into the building before our go live, which was imperative for our dispatchers because they had never had live training. So they needed to come in and at least be familiar with the seating and the consoles and the monitors and all the things. They had never had that. So it was so exciting to see it being built, and then to walk in before the night before that they all actually had to come into the center and just see it actually be a 911 center. That was the best part. And it was beautiful. I love everything about the design. It is very pretty.
No, that also makes me happy. One thing I want to ask you about is the installation process. So again, new build, you have, GCs coming in, everything is kind of getting its last kind of buttons as we're coming in and doing the install too. Right. So how was that process for you all? I know it wasn't, a live setting, so it was more of an empty space, but still there are hurdles and things that you have to come in, or was it, our install came in and seamlessly kind of everything.
Seamless.
Yeah.
They were your team was amazing. And anytime we came in here, right, we had our hard hats on and we're doing all the things. They just would, if we had questions, they would stop and answer our questions. And even when they had questions, they would stop, they would wait for us to come in instead of trying to figure it out themselves, or trying to get a hold of you to get a hold of us. They would wait for us to come in and ask us what, did you want to do this? Is this okay? Is this how you wanted it? Right? This is how the plans are looking. Or when they noticed a flaw in the plans, they're like, this doesn't seem right. Did you really mean it to be this way? And we got it mitigated right away. So the communication, I know it's not normal in these types of situations to necessarily have us on site. We were just across the street, our offices, so we were coming over daily. But it was just so communicative, and I'm going to keep saying the word seamless because that's what it was for such a short amount of time that we had to get it going.
I remember getting a couple of calls during that time, and from one of our installers, and he was like, "Hey, we're needing this piece," and I was like,
"Oh yes."
And honestly, a complete team effort, because I said, well, let me call Dale or Kelly and see how we can get this figured out.
Right.
And I think we ended up getting, it was, I'm not sure if it was like power strips. It was something with the electrical.
It was a power strip that we had to have overnighted because we wanted your installers to do the installation, not to have to, first of all, come back and do it. And he was willing to wait. He was supposed to leave that night because he had a family event the next day, and he stayed an extra night. I ran to the FedEx store in Albuquerque because it was supposed to be delivered 2 days prior. They kept saying that they couldn't deliver it, whatever. I ran to the FedEx store in Albuquerque, to the FedEx place in Albuquerque. He stayed an extra night just so that he can come in the morning at 6:30 in the morning and install it. So, the customer service was impeccable. It was amazing. I really felt bad because he had to stay an extra night, but he was like, it's just easier if I do it. If you can just get it to me in the morning, we'll take care of it. And they did. They stayed and took care of it. So.
I love that. I think that's one of the things that, I think from start to finish, where you're like, hey, this is a time sensitive project. We need to get from the design process to, we go through, okay, we have an installation date now to like full completion. And I know the word seamless, we keep using that word, but when you think about it, from start to finish, it was, honestly, I think I had a conversation with my director, and I was like, I think this might have been just with the efforts that were put in from everyone. Like, I was so appreciative of going back and forth, Jeff and his team and you all, 10 out of 10.
It really was. And we didn't have room for error. So that was what was very scary is, we just didn't have room for a part not to be There was just no
Yeah.
room for error. Everything had to be done because we didn't have a choice. There was no give on that go live date. And so I just, out of all the vendors, you guys were just amazing in the sense that you understood that. You didn't try to get us to change the date, which a lot of vendors did, and we're like, you don't understand. We don't have a choice. Yeah, you guys were just very accommodating, and it was a team effort, which was pretty amazing the way that everything came together. But like I said, just your team that did the installation. It was even a team effort in that way, where they got with our IT specialist that was, connecting all the computers to make sure that he was doing it in a way where, they were like, well, if you want to plug it in after we leave, it's going to be a mess and you're going to have to move things. Do you want to do it now? And so they just worked together to make that happen, where it was like long 16-hour days. Like they were here for a long time. Yeah.
It
was great.
It
was a village.
Time.
Yeah,
it does take a village. And when I reflect on this, and again, this is, I feel like, kind of an anomaly, because it takes time from start to finish generally. And I know there were already pieces in the works, right? Yes. And even the furniture piece in creating the environment for the team, that even can take anywhere from, on average, 12 to 18 months to dial in exactly what is needed, and then to implement those wants in there. But this was one that I was so confident about it. I was going back and forth, and they're like, hey, and I'm like, we have to have this. And honestly, it brought more, just, I think, confidence and value into the team of being like, hey, we can do this.
Yes, for sure. Because, and I'm grateful that we were able, your team was so, I just keep using that word too, accommodating, because the installation team was just willing to allow like our IT in to make those installations as, on their side, as they were still doing their installation, just to make sure that it was seamless and it had the aesthetic that it needed.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they would have, done the computer installations after you guys left, that could have been a whole other, there would have been wires everywhere. And your installation team was like, you don't really want that. And he's like, I really think they need to come in, and we'll work back here if they want to work up there, and then we'll finish up there when they're working back here. So they really just became one team. It was very flawless.
I love that.
And no room for error, and there was none. So it was great.
I do love that. And I think one too is like, when you get to the point of installation, especially with IT coming in and like having to do all of their things, sometimes there isn't guidance.
No.
Like sometimes you don't have someone like, hey, you probably shouldn't, or I probably would like go ahead and start here, work this angle, or this is meant for this, to the T, so that it does look like cable management is on point. Even the monitor cables that are already pre-ran, and saying, hey, how do we, or if we do need to make adjustments, I probably would, advise you to do something like this with the way that our system works.
Exactly.
So I do love that, like, even to the end, there was like,
it was great. And like I said, your installation team, the lead, he was just like, this doesn't seem, I just want to make sure I understand what you're using this for, or why this was placed here, because it isn't making sense to me. And I just want to make sure that you guys are going to get the most use out of what you're attempting to do. So it was great. It was just that guidance in that way, where they did that. So
that makes me so happy.
And you were great, Effie. The first time me and Amber met you, we were like, we love Effie. Can she just stay here with us this whole build?
You all
She's
were
wonderful.
So inviting.
Yeah.
We came over and met. You all had coffee and food. I was like, can every place? I was like, this is amazing. I would stay here. I was like, oh my gosh. And then You know, you kind of talked to me a little bit about the adoption over here, the entire complex. So I'm just kind of getting the rundown. I'm like, you get to go out and walk the dog sometimes on your lunch break, like all of these things. And even just to hear from, you know, the consulting,
Right.
you know, and then from you of kind of like what you're looking for.
Right.
It really helped into, I think, the gravity, the weight of needing to be like, it was imperative. It was like, we have to have that. And I think when you hear that conviction, right,
Right.
you're like, this is much bigger than me, obviously.
Right.
Right. There's so many parts, but what small part can we play in making sure that everything comes together? And it was honestly, I was blown away.
Yeah.
Because the question kept getting like, are you sure like this is moving really quickly? And I said, this might be like, as far as timeline wise, like the fastest of needing to get things done by a certain time in a short amount of time. And I was like, I am 1,000% confident. Like, I
Right.
was like, we do have, like, there were a few hiccups there, you know,
Right.
as we got to the end, but it was like, hey, I am going back and I'm saying, hey, we have to, like, trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Well, even our punch list, right? Like, you know,
Mhm.
there's a punch list at the end of every contract or vendor. We didn't even have a punch list because it was all completed. That was the crazy part to me. You know, like I still have things that need to be done in the center
Mhm.
that still haven't been completed since July. And that's, you know, I understand because we put the pressure to make a certain deadline because we had to go live July 1st. So some things did have to wait. But Xybix did not have that. Everything was completed when you guys said it was going to be completed. And even though we did have a few things that had to be shipped out later on, or, you know, even with the installation team staying an extra day,
yeah.
you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, it was completed,
Mhm.
which never, especially in this tight timeline,
Mhm.
I haven't experienced that with other vendors, and it's understandable. It was, you know, an expectation that definitely was pushing the timeline. So
Mhm.
I just appreciate that Xybix allowed us to be such an intricate part in the process, because sometimes, you know, you get the contract and then they're like, we're going to do our job, you do your job.
Mhm.
But it definitely was a team effort. Dealing with other agencies, I can say that your team was definitely was easy to just collaborate with and make that happen.
Yeah. Okay.
It was great. It really was. It was easy.
Oh, good. That makes me. I did say, I think I was like, well, we're gonna try to make this as easy as possible, just because you know how stressful it can be.
Yeah.
You know, even with having to get revisions out.
Right.
You know, normally we have our week turnaround, but if
Right.
it's something that's like we're pressed on time, we try to get it out as soon as we can.
Yes.
And again, I think just like everyone who had a helping hand and like, hey, like we need this, or even our design team,
Right.
hey, we like, can we get this out in like 2 days, you know? And everyone was on board, you know, and that goes from like designers to Kelly and Dale, who are, you know, schedule our installations, and then they get their team, and everybody just kind of comes and builds this. And it's a really cool process. And honestly, it's like amazing to see it all come together too.
Yes.
Everyone here working, and again, from like nothing, I think there was still like getting electrical done.
This
and
part, when you came to do the measuring, this part of the room hadn't even, they had just pushed it out.
Mhm.
So it hadn't even been drywalled.
Yeah.
Nothing in here. There was just a bunch of construction stuff. So I know it was a lot, but
the process is like,
yeah.
you know what it takes to, at least I definitely learned from this project, because this was one that I hadn't experienced before.
Right.
And so going forward, you know, even for other centers, other directors, if there is like a time sensitive, I think I have my level of confidence for what we can do in that time to just serve you all is, I mean, skyrocketed for me. Like, I have confidence and I know this is going to happen to like, no, this will happen.
Right.
You know, and we just need to work together to make
Your
sure
team
that it
is
gets
amazing.
Yeah.
Your team is absolutely amazing, and the fact that they were able to do it. I would have just even been happy with 4 consoles done.
Like,
But
we'll
it was
piece together.
great that that everything was finished in the, under the timeline, which was imperative. And it truly was a benefit to our staff because they got to come in a week before, 2 weeks before we went live, and actually like just get comfortable in the center, which is a hard thing to do. And even though it was a weird situation or not the, you know, the most ideal, I've been a part of a Xybix build where there was people working, so I know that that's hard as well because you have to have people move and do all the things. So I'm glad we just didn't have necessarily that for your team to just come in and just work and get it done. So, and I think that was helpful for them as well because they were able to complete all the things that they needed to do. So it was great. It was great.
Thank you again, Yvonne, for meeting with me today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you all enjoyed it and got some helpful tips. Please let us know if you have any questions or need any help.